Hello and welcome, dear learners, to the NPTEL course on Healthcare Quality Management, Infection Control and Patient Safety. Today in the Module 4, Clinical Governance, Leadership and Risk Management in Healthcare, we will be studying Clinical Governance in Healthcare in the chapter 37. This chapter will deal with the key factors of successful implementation, benefits of good clinical governance. So, if we do talk to understand what is a clinical governance, we need to understand that healthcare has evolved from charitable services into one of the most complex industries involving direct human life. So, there is always an involvement of human life and it deals with some trajectories that a human life has faced when it comes to healthcare. So, principles of the TQM, that is Total Quality Management, are highly relevant in modern healthcare delivery. Hospital governance consists of two components. One is the managerial governance and the other is the clinical governance. There are two parts. One is completely which is devoted more to the clinical part, one is more towards the management part. So the clinical governance is primarily responsible for ensuring patient safety. All the matters of patient safety deals with clinical governance, where versus the managerial governance is not directly related to the patient. So it is a dynamic learning orientation concept that involves continuously by learning from more mistakes. So as we are talking about clinical governance goes beyond accreditation while sharing certain common features. So what is the role of accreditation bodies we'll try to understand over here. The accreditation bodies support organization in strengthening clinical governance system. The accreditation bodies like NABH, NQAS and JCI helps improve patient safety and quality of care in this healthcare institution. Effective accreditation reduces medical errors and lowers overall healthcare cost. Countries such as UK and Australia have shown significant improvement in the healthcare delivery through the clinical governance. So if we need to go into the background of clinical governance, what it is. The Institute of Management in 2001 reported 44,000 to 98,000 of annual deaths in US due to preventable medical errors. We have even studied in the previous chapters what is medical errors. And following this report which came for the preventive medical errors, the corrective measures led to reduction in the medical errors and casualties were highlighted. If we do talk about India, India lacks a robust system for monitoring medical errors, making assessment more difficult, and that's where we find the Indian healthcare system is full of all these issues. Rising medical errors and growing demand for safe healthcare highlight the urgent need for stronger healthcare system. So, what is the aim of the healthcare improvement? With respect to the IOM report 2001, the identified 6 aims of healthcare improvement were safer, effective, patient-centered, timely, efficient and equitable. So, these all constitutes to make that if you have to improve the healthcare, you need to work on all these 6 aims. All these above aims can be achieved through strong clinical governance. Governments and healthcare authorities play a key role in enabling safe and high quality of healthcare system. So, if you do continue with clinical governance, it describes the method by which the healthcare organization ensures safety. It ensures effectiveness, efficientness, and evidence-based care. There is a systemic approach which is very important and it is maintaining and continuously improving the patient care quality. You will find there is a lot of improvement into the patient care quality. And it also ensures that this healthcare staff follow standardized and evidence-based practices, which is very important to complete the arena of clinical governance. What are the different components of clinical governance? Leadership, engagement and commitment is the very first component of clinical governance, followed by education and training. Clinical risk assessment and management, followed by clinical audits. Information management, clinical effectiveness and patient-centeredness makes the entire volume of the components of clinical governance to be fulfilled. If we do talk about clinical engagement and commitment, it is the first and the most essential element of clinical governance. Leaders must set examples actively, they engage the employees and demonstrate the accountability. It is more talking about the engagement and commitment, which is more coming from the influence of the healthcare leaders. Employees should feel empowered to implement governance activity effectively. They need to have the freedom actually, and the leadership must create a supportive and blameless organization culture. Effective recognition and reward system should be established, which is very important to boost the motive of the employees. Management must ensure the availability of adequate resources for the clinical governance. Leadership responsibility extends beyond the top management to the HODs and nursing leaders. Many times they are being stated as into the ladder of the organization structure, but they do identify as a leader. So many times the responsibility needs to be extended. Clinical governance requires leadership at every organization level. So, in all the layers, actually, we need to understand that there is a settled leadership and it takes the responsibility of the clinical governance. That way, it can prove its expertise and can meet up the outcomes of the healthcare. Second comes into this is education and training. The emphasis on education and training are the second most important component for leadership commitment. So, if you do find that these two elements are to be implemented, the first training should begin during staff induction and it should continue regularly. Ongoing education keeps staff updated. That's called as on job, and it should be with standard processes and continuous training improving, which is improving the productivity. It reduces the medical errors and it ensures the better clinical outcomes. Then comes the clinical risk assessment and management. If we understand the healthcare delivery system, it is inherently carrying a lot of clinical risk. It is inevitable to state that there is no clinical risk as such to be identified as. So the risk should be proactively identified. The risk should be assessed and minimized on an ongoing process basis. The effective risk assessment significantly reduces the medical errors. So you can understand the assessment followed by identification and then management of it. The risk reporting and the safety system are embedded into this component, where the proper selection of teams for risk assessment activities is essential. Active participation of trained clinicians and nursing staff improve the outcomes. Incident reporting system must be in place. So staff should be encouraged to report incidents without fear of blame. Yeah, although otherwise it is being found that if they are being identified of the risk reporting, they are blamed. Versus to that, when you make the clinical governance more effective, it should be without blame. Then is the risk registers and reporting culture. What it is as and why do organizations need to develop such a culture? So most of the organization who introduced this initiative called as Great Catch Awards. These Great Catch Awards are one to recognize the risk identification. This is more given actually someone who is making the risk identification, and the award is being given as if you are able to do that, you are improving the healthcare organization. Therefore, this risk register should be maintained across all the hospital units and not to only few of the areas. The quality team needs to understand the importance of this, and the clinical staff should also be trained in risk assessment and incident reporting processes. Many times they might be doing their complete work, but without this, the entire work of identification and management is not complete. Now there is the discussion of clinical audits and what is the importance of clinical audits. Clinical audits are tools to monitor. They are the tools to improve the clinical quality. So clinical governance should elevate the importance of audit within the organization. And how does it comes to and what is the reason that we need to come up with the clinical audits? So clinical audits can be taken with adequate training and funding must support the audit teams. Without that, it is not possible. So clinicians should be provided with protected time to participate in the audit rather not being taken as a burden for this clinical audit. No doubt clinical audit plays a very important role in this and the entire process is with reporting and improvement. What are the results of the clinical audit? clinical audit results should be reported to the top management, and it should be framed actually where the findings must lead to corrective and preventive action rather not to a blame culture. What is the reason of making corrective and preventive actions? Because the effective use of this audit results improve the clinical outcomes. Also, additionally, patient safety. So, effective use of this audit results in improving the clinical outcomes and patient safety. Adding to this, there is information management. A lot of information comes to the healthcare institution from the patient and from the outside world, and even the information is generated in the organization. So, effective information flow is critical for every healthcare delivery. Medical records are a key source of clinical information, and you may find the MRD department is fully flooded with information. So, how do you ensure that you have to take care of this information, and how effective information comes with management importance? So, analysis of all the records, patient feedback, incident reports, which all supports the quality improvement needs to be taken care. Proper information uses enables and continuous monitoring and feedback, which is important for the clinicians and every hospital employee to put a track on this. So, the effective information management also strengthen the clinical governance system, as we have been seeing that the data which is coming and which is helping the physicians to enhance the patient safety and care quality by the support of all other hospital staff. Then comes clinical effectiveness. And what is clinical effectiveness to be seen as? It is being seen as ensuring, which begins with recruiting the right clinical staff, where you find there is a lot of issues when you don't come up with a particular employee in terms of expertise or even the qualification. A robust credentialing process is very, very important. If you do go according to JCI, the Joint Commission International Standards, the clinical staff must not being practiced before credential verification. They should not be a part of the hospital or the processes before the verification is done. So, credential must match the required skill and scope of the practice, because most of the incidents are happening only because they find that the clinical staff is not well trained actually for the particular service. So, credentialing, privileging, and reprivileging. So, privileging ensures that only competent clinical staff should provide the patient care. So, reprivileging should be conducted every 2 to 3 years. So, what is the importance of that? It performs and it gives the indicators which are improving towards showing the responses, the length of the stay, the mortality rates, adverse clinical incidents, antibiotic use, and blood product usage. You can understand what is the performance indicators. If they are to be found improving, then you can say that it is more a competent clinician or even the staff. So these all processes improve the clinical outcomes. This all helps in enhancing the patient safety. There is a clinical practice guideline, that is CPGs. And what are CPGs? CPG assist the decision making to a clinician in a very specific clinical situation. They define the appropriate diagnostic and treatment modalities for patient management. And CPGs promote standardized and evidence-based clinical care across all the specialty in the hospital. The purpose of making this clinical practice guideline is to improve the quality of patient care and clinical outcomes. It also reduces the inappropriate variation in clinical practices along with promoting efficient use of healthcare resources. It also identifies the knowledge gaps and prioritizes towards the research activities. Implementation of the clinical practice guidelines becomes very important when it should be adopted by all the hospital specialties and all the departments, rather not restricted to few. But there is a very important emphasis that we need to place over here. It is that there is adherence to all the national and international accepted guidelines. Along with this, the protocols and the pathways also need to be understood. Quarterly audits of the patient record should be conducted to assess the compliance part, and which is very mandatory that hospital needs to work with the quality team to do this. Audit results must be analyzed and discussed in departmental meetings. It can also be put to the department head prior and then to the department other people. Corrective and necessary action should be taken to improve the guideline compliance. There are some key factors for the successful implementation which results to a good clinical governance. We have talked about the leadership involvement. So active involvement and commitment of clinical leadership and top management are essential to meet up this success. Without this, it is not possible because the clinical leaders must be accountable and they are the one change agent who can drive the clinical governance initiative. Without their support, it is not possible because many of those governance efforts fail due to lack of leadership commitment and the support. So, weekly patient safety walk rounds to strengthen the clinical governance. Direct interaction with the staff during the walk rounds support the continuous improvement. Ownership for the patient safety and clinical quality should be taken by everyone in the organization. The clinical leaders must be taken the ownership and they should foster the mindset among all the staff, and they must be one who are the strong motivators for this. They need to improve the safety processes and they need to encourage the patient safety ambassadors. So the quality team comprises actually for all the coordinative activities, the facilitative activities, and they does not solely own the patient safety. Safeguard and standard patient requires collaboration from the entire healthcare team in the hospital. So we may come across the role of quality leadership. Robert Lloyd plays this role and stated that having a quality improvement department alone does not guarantee a quality. So many times we may find that a quality team is there, the quality people are there, but they are not able to work for that. What does it really helps to come up with this issue? So if a quality improvement is viewed as residing only with quality department, it doesn't gives it creates a great gap. Quality is neither a program nor a project. It is not the responsibility of a single person and a department, where the Lloyd cited that the quality director or the manager functions as a coach, as a facilitator, and a cheerleader, which we usually find in every sports activity. It is not that the coach will play, it is not that the people who are supporting the coach will play, but the team will play under the guidance of this coach, and that's what the role of a quality department is. Every employee, executive, caregivers, and consultants should feel motivated to achieve some excellence which is derived by this quality coach or quality champions. Quality improvement and a core lesson for that. So, successful quality improvement is often the most difficult concept for organization to understand truly. How does it really comes to us? So, as seen, many of the healthcare organizations believe that they deliver high quality care. That is a belief actually they come up with. But often the reflected slogans such as "We care" and "We are the quality leaders" are not matching. Focusing only on accreditation compliance or external review can create a false sense of quality, and they can just give this as in jargon that we are caring or we are something as in quality leader or top standard care. What is the sustainability issue which comes as in very core in quality improvement? So quality improvement occurs only when people at every layer, or I mean to say every level, they continuously strive to improve the quality process. It also leads to the quality outcomes, and even through small and incremental changes they are targeted up to. It also involved with the value addition done by the patient. So patient cannot be only seen as a stakeholder but as a major involver. So what is the patient's involvement coming as, and why it is so essential? It is essential for the successful implementation of the clinical governance, as they must be provided with authentic and valuable feedback on the healthcare services to the healthcare providers. Some of the hospitals or healthcare institutions include patient representatives. You may talk about the discussions in Indian hospital setups, that is of a Rogi Kalyan Samiti. which is a committee which is developed with the patient's relatives or can be included with patients' relatives as well. Accreditation bodies strongly emphasize on patient involvement through the care processes. Additionally, there should be a supportive and blame-less culture, rather not blame culture. Fear of repeating of all the incidences is the biggest hurdle in the patient safety. Many times the patient's care is halted with some of the issues, and it is more being seen that the patient's relatives or the people who are supported to the patient, they may able to get up all this issue and they report it to the healthcare worker. The healthcare workers also identified that there is a reporting need to be done, but with this issue they don't get a support from their superiors. So leadership plays a very important role over here in the supportive and a blameless culture to come into force. Developing a safe culture with a strong values is challenging but achievable with committed leadership. Staff should be encouraged with all reporting of all incidences and even the near misses. Conducting a safe cultures survey is the best method to come up and initiate and assess the safety culture. Training and education emphasis is very important when to come up with a well designed program. It needs to have a proper orientation and performance appraisal and reprivileging decisions should be linked with that. What are the annual training programs should be planned up as? It should be like the CMEs that we do it in medical practices and even the continuous nursing education, that is the CNEs. Every physician and nurse should complete at least a minimum number of CMEs and CNEs annually according to the stream. There should be an assigning KPIs. KPIs are very important over that without monitoring and it makes improvement ineffective. So KPI must be assigned to each clinical service and the process. Indicators should be identified through the brainstorming with the relevant clinical staff who is working with the KPIs. And that way we find that assigning KPIs comes as a very important way to identify what needs to be improved and what needs to be monitored, which is leading to the effectiveness rather not only coming up with ineffective way of dealing with this. So the processes must be designed to capture the data for all the identified indicators which we have been working in the quality. Dissemination of the monitoring results. Before dissemination of the monitoring result being seen as a critical step, we need to collate the data. The data need to be collected with an accreditation purpose rather not being seen as just only to meet up the requirement. The feedback system also needs to come in help for the outcomes and improving the performance, which is being followed by quality tools for the clinical governance. That is, the different important quality tools can be used such as PDCA, that is plan, do, check and act, and FMEA. Failure mode and effective analysis, or even a fishbone or Ishikawa diagram followed by control and bar charts. So there are multiple quality tools out of the 7-8 you can use what is very effective for the clinical governance improvement. No doubt records and recognition should be maintained and it gives a quality improvement a boost, where in the monthly open forums the management should address and even the clinical leaders and nursing leaders effectively they should be enforced actually to see that those who are recognized or they enforce the quality and they meet up the clinical governance, they should be awarded for this part. These are some experts' insights where Dr. Mala Erum, or the medical superintendent of Narayana Multispecialty Hospital, Jaipur, she has emphasized on the sustained clinical governance which requires visible and continuous leadership commitment, also highlighting the importance of strong coordination and facilitation by the quality team to translate plans into action. Where was Sir Diana Hercules and the healthcare quality and patient safety leader in United Arab Emirates emphasizes on strengthening nursing clinical governance as a foundation for quality. Also, active leadership involvement at all levels should be one. Along with that, staff empowerment with stresses has stressed and ownership of patient safety. So the importance of continuous training and education is also being emphasized by her. What are the benefits of clinical governance? As already stated that how it leads to staff ownership and patient safety improvement by improving the productivity. The blameless culture supports by the leadership enhanced motivation. Also, the hospital image and patient safety come in hand in hand. When you come across safe and high standard and affordable care, which improves the hospital image, which also leads to increase in trust of the patient and the choices that the patient makes towards the healthcare organization. Also, it has a part of cost reduction, which is very important to be seen as where unnecessary investigations are taken up. Non-value adding steps should be limited actually. Where clinical governance also supports cost reduction and equitable care, which is very important and it has been cited in various reports. Effective, efficient care and professional development can be done with the help of evidence-based care. Clinical governance promotes continuous professional development through regular CMEs and CNEs, training on new development and skill enhancement program. So, in summary, to this entire chapter that we have studied on clinical governance is that clinical governance is a system-wide approach. You need to ensure safe, effective evidence and patient-centered care. The sustainability part is very important to be seen with the help of only a strong leadership, staff ownership and supportiveness rather than on putting the blame culture using more blameless culture. Patients' involvement is also being seen as very important and evidence-based guidelines and performance feedback need to drive a meaningful and lasting improvement. So with this, we come an end to this chapter, which also gives an effective clinical governance, which leads to better patient outcomes, improve staff performance, and reducing in the cost, which enhance the trust of the patient. So I come an end to this discussion, putting you to these references. Thank you for this.